Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is the PodcASSt podcast, and I am PodcASSt Craig. In this episode, we're going to meet another gentleman that I am honored to call a friend. I first met this guy after hearing of him from Paco, the guest we heard in episode 1. His real name is Jeff Wyatt, and he is very well known in the motorcycle industry as Riot. Riot has been married to his wife, Amy, for 28 years, and together they have 2 children, Taylor and Eric. In 2018, Riot signed up for the Hoka Motorcycle Challenge, where riders are encouraged to ride for a charity. Riot chose to ride for Jamesy, a little boy that had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. Riot's original plan was to ride this one event and get back to life. But the Hoka would turn out to be the one event that changed him forever. In this podcast, we'll find out why. The list of accomplishments in this current motorcycle story start there. In 2018, Riot raised $28,000 riding the Hoka, finishing in just 11 days, 6 hours, which put him in the top 5 of 120 riders. Being the top fundraiser for the event, Riot was awarded the Good Medicine plaque. In 2019, he raised $45,000 in the Race Against Time, where he rode 8,643 miles, hitting the lower 48 states, ending back home in New Jersey in just 7 days, 17 hours, and 45 minutes. Riot returned to the Hoka in 2020, raising $27,000, finishing the 10,000-mile challenge in 10 days, tied for 4th place out of 150 riders. Riot was again the top fundraiser, and this time awarded the PodcASSt. He followed up the Hoka with a 9,500-mile New Jersey to California awareness tour with PodcASSt, touching everything from the Great Lakes to the Canadian and Mexican borders. In 2021, Riot completed the Monster Dash, raising $4,500 with a 24-hour, 1,500-mile ride. He also did a coast-to-coast challenge where he rode from Coney Island, New York to the Golden Gate Bridge in just 46 hours and 46 minutes, raising $10,150. Riot then ran the promotion of Hopper's 100, where Chris Hopper rode 100,000 miles in 100 days with a goal of raising $100,000. While all of this seems beyond human and incredibly impressive, Riot's biggest accomplishment in the motorcycling community has to be the formation of Mile Monsters, Inc. on January 1st of 2021. To date, the Mile Monsters have raised $214,650 riding just 1 mile at a time to help kids with DMD live their best life. In this episode, we'll find out how he and I met and a little bit of the history behind the man they call Riot. After that lengthy introduction, it's my pleasure to finally introduce you. Riot, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Craig. It's awesome to join you here to talk about this such great things we're working on. And I appreciate putting all that to words. It seems like yesterday we started it, and here we are, and hitting 2022 already. So time really does fly.
It's amazing how fast this year has gone. 2021, the year.
Yeah.
I mean, happy birthday to the Mile Monsters, right?
Yeah, thank you.
So you are the second recording of this podcast. There have been none aired other than my little pilot episode. So I appreciate you coming on and helping struggle through this to help me figure it out.
No problem. Everything's a learning curve, but the more people you reach, the more awareness is spread, and it's all good.
For sure. We met, am I correct? We met through Paco, if I'm not mistaken. I think he reached out to me and somehow got us together. Is that right?
Yeah. When I competed in 2018 in the first Hoka, he's the one that turned me on to your product. So then I used your product. I bought one and had somebody else pick it up at Lake George and get it to me. Anyhow, so then I started using it. Well, in 2020, during the Hoka, I lost it. And then Paco had told you I lost it and kind of connected us. And we met in Minnesota for the first time. But it's funny how things work.
It is a small world.
Yeah, it sure is. But that's definitely how we met, was through Paco and through your product. So, it's evolved quite a ways from there, but that's where it started.
I would say it has evolved a ways. I have to ask, so looking back through the the bio here, the bio, excuse me, that we have set up. Where did the name Eric's come from? That's your son. You have a daughter, Taylor, correct? And a son,
Correct.
Eric's.
Yep.
Okay.
And my son Eric's his name, my wife and I found that when we were dating, long before we were engaged. So many years before he was even a thought, we already had a name. And my God-given name is Jeff, and there was too many of them, and I just wanted to find a name that was a little out there, but yet kind of still manly and cool. So we found that in a video game of all places way back when. I believe it was a Nintendo something. I saw it on a screen, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool looking name, and it just kind of stuck. So long before we were even engaged, married, had kids, whatever, we already had the name of our son picked out.
That's crazy. I bet he's got some really cool nicknames.
Yeah, he does. Down in college, they call him A-Rex. We call him A-Man. There's all kinds of, he's got it all going on.
That's cool. So to talk about you, give us a little bit of history. How exactly did you get into motorcycling?
Well, I did not grow up riding dirt bikes, anything like that. I grew up riding four-wheelers and horses, or three-wheelers actually back then. So I just always had a craving, desire to ride. So the first time I got a little extra money when I was 18, 19 years old, I bought a Yamaha Virago, and I'd never really even been on a motorcycle. And back in those days, you could just buy it and ride away. So I just bought a motorcycle and rode away and tried to survive the ride home, not knowing what counter steering was or anything else. And I made it home, and I just went from there. And then I got my first Harley, years later, and I just fell in love with the open road. It just has evolved to what I do now. But I started out like everybody else, just riding around, for 10 minutes here and there, and going to the bar or whatever. But it just evolved. But I always had the love for being on two wheels. I just, something just called to me, just something different.
Was there a reason you didn't have a dirt bike? I mean, so you had three wheelers. Obviously, I guess looking back, they were more dangerous than motorcycles, but were your parents against motorcycles, or you just never had one?
I don't think they were against motorcycles. We just grew up, we had a farm. So everything we had a purpose. We didn't have, a lot of extra stuff where they were just toys. So we didn't have time to be, racing dirt bikes, anything like that. So our three wheelers were used for, work around the farm. That's really why we had them. Otherwise,
Sure.
I don't think I would have had those either. But if it wasn't farm related, we didn't have it on the farm. That's just how it was. So I just was never introduced to it. And I had one friend that rode dirt bikes, and dirt bikes didn't really do it for me like riding on the street does. So
Sure.
just didn't call to me like road bikes do.
When you got into road bikes, what do you remember what it was that called to you that made you want to do it?
I just wanted to. I just think I like the open air. The wind blowing in your hair, and the kind of the freedom of it, not being surrounded by a cage. I just, something about that just really hit home deep down with me. So I just loved it. And back then, we didn't have radios on motorcycles, and I rode for years and years without ever having a radio or any kind of music. Just, you have your thoughts and your and the sights, but there's nothing better than the sights when you're on a motorcycle. Like, nothing looks the same as it does on a motorcycle. It's the closest thing you can find to flying like Superman, I guess.
Isn't it? I have to assume that most people listening to this are going to be motorcycle people, but how do you explain that exact feeling of that open air riding when you're talking to somebody that doesn't ride? I've always tried. How do you explain it? Have you ever tried to explain it to somebody?
It's very hard to explain, but I say it's like almost like being Superman, 3 feet off the ground instead of being way up. But, the view is just so incredible. It's like take away everything else, and all you see is what's here. And, it's hard to explain. And it's one of those things that if you have to take more than a couple minutes to explain it, they're never going to get it. So you can explain it for 3 hours or 30 seconds. Either they get it in the first 30 seconds or they're never going to get it.
Yeah. It's like being in the IMAX movie where you're
Yeah.
not looking around the rearview mirror, the doorposts, or the roof. You just turn your head and everything's clear.
Yeah, that's a good analogy of it, and that's what it's like.
Yeah. Okay. So here's one for you. And I don't actually do this, but I've known for years that people name their cars, their boats, their motorcycles. Like I said, I don't have a name for any of my stuff. We had a boat that I guess we did get a name for, but that's Renee's fault, not mine. I've just never done it. You named your current bike Pearl. So tell us about Pearl and why the name Pearl.
I named my bike. I wanted to name my bike. I had never really been that attached to any piece of machinery, a motorcycle, anything like that. But when I rode that bike in my first Hoka, I got really close to the bike. You spend a lot of time on it. It's just you. Pearl does not have a radio. She's electric glide standard, so there's nothing fancy on it. And it was just me and my thoughts for all those days. So I wanted to come up with a name, and so I put it on Facebook to our followers, to help me find a name and help me come up with something. We got all kinds of ideas, and a lot of them are pretty cool, but we had a bunch, and just kind of come up with a name. And I decided on Pearl because Pearl is was my wife's grandma. And Pearl lived in Minnesota, and she was like a grandma to me too, but she was just awesome because no matter what, all she wanted was for me to be safe, for Amy and I to be safe and everything to go well. And she always kind of guided us and kept us safe and made sure, you weren't doing anything. If I was doing something, she would be the first one to tell you, you shouldn't be doing that, or you should watch this, or, tell me I was stupid, or for doing it, whatever. She didn't pull any punches, and I always loved her for that. So, I just had a draw. So I named the bike Pearl, and I have a sticker on the tank, kind of describing that. If you ever look at my tank on the bike, it says Pearl, and it says, to look over me and guide me as I ride and compete in these crazy things. So, and with that said, the name Pearl stuck. It's a perfect fitting for it. The bike is just like her grandma, solid as a rock, never lets me down. Pearl has broke down a couple times, never left me on the side of the road. I've always gotten to my goal with her. Just been a great bike, and the name, it couldn't be any more fitting, really.
That's perfect. As you say, I know of one breakdown, but it was after you made it where you were going. So technically that doesn't count to me.
Right.
Like you're saying, she's never failed.
I've wrecked a few things on her, but I've always rode her to Harley to get it repaired. I blew the cam bearings out last winter, a year ago right now, and I rode it to Harley to get it repaired. And during that coast to coast, I went across the desert. I knew something was wrong, but she got me all the way to the finish line and got me into San Francisco, and I got it to the Harley dealership the next day. So I've never sat on the side of the road. I had an oil leak one time that I decided not to drive it the 3 miles because I didn't want to wreck her for no good reason. But I could have drove it that time. But anyhow, she's never let me down. Knock on wood, and she's been just a great bike.
One of your comments in there made me write down this question. Is Pearl the only bike that you've had then since the 2018 race?
No, I have. I've had a couple other street glides. I have a street glide that I ride around home. So that's typically my my ride around bike. I used to use Pearl strictly for competitions, and that was it. But now I do ride her. This year I rode her a lot more. I rode around a lot more, and didn't ride my street glide as much. But I have a street glide in the garage as well.
But Pearl's the only bike you've competed on?
Yep. Pearl is the only bike I've competed on, with the exception of the cam bearing went out, and they thought it was out in 2020, 3 days before the Hoka, or a week. Let's see, the 3 days before I was supposed to leave for the Hoka. So I borrowed a bike for the Hoka in 2020. I borrowed a road glide from Shoreline Harley, which I was very thankful they stepped up and got me a bike while Pearl was in the shop. And so in that competition, I rode a 2016 road glide, for that one. So that was pretty interesting too, because at that time I had never ridden a road glide, as crazy as that sounds. So I went from never riding a road glide to throwing some bars and a windshield on it, putting my bags from Pearl on it, and stickering it up and throwing it in the competition, and away we went.
I forgot that. I forgot that story. In the bio, I talked about the Hoka Hey, your first one. Is that the first ever fundraising attempt on a motorcycle? Would have been your 2018 Hoka Hey?
Yes, that was the first time I had attempted any kind of fundraising since I was a kid, and for school or something. But I have never done any kind of fundraising like that, and I had never competed in any kind of motorcycle event like that at all. I considered myself a pretty decent rider, and I wanted to try the Hoka Hey because I thought that was one of the more extreme tests of your abilities out there. And so just kind of pulled me to it. I wanted to give it a try, and my plan was to ride it in 2018, come home, sell the bike, and get on with life. I bought Pearl just to use for that one event, and I was really going to just sell it next late that summer or the next spring. But life takes some turns, and I still on her.
So you bought a bike to do this one event. How did you even hear of the Hoka Hey then?
I've heard of the Hoka Hey through people talking about it a little bit here and there, but I didn't understand what it was. And then in 2016, there were a couple guys that I knew that attempted it where I followed it and really got to understand what it was. So going back to 15 is when I knew about it. I really knew what it was. 16, I just couldn't swing it with my life. And then after 16, I decided that their next event I'm going to do for sure. And then they went to doing it every 2 years. So we had to wait until 2018 to get involved with it.
Okay. So you've, let's talk, I don't even have this written down, but you made some life changes from 2016 to 2018. Would you care to share those?
Some life changes. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, 16 to 18.
So I'm assuming, is this when you got rid of business?
Yeah,
stopped,
yeah. It was about then.
So
yeah,
share that because very cool story.
Yeah, what I did was I had a concrete business, and I poured concrete and did stamped concrete, and it just kind of the wife wasn't real keen on that line of work, and crazy as it sounds, I loved it, but it was, that's a young man's game. So I blew my knee out, and then I decided not to do that anymore. So it really did change. And then I was focused on the kids and all that good stuff that comes along with raising two kids that are into sports. So I coached every sport I can think of. And then when I got into this, it just kind of evolved right into getting into the Hoka Hey, and then it just really took off after that.
Well, and it's crazy because one of my questions I always have to ask, and everybody thinks this when I talk to them and talk about long distance riders and people that go out, such as yourself, and do all these crazy long rides. The first question is always, what do they do for work?
Yeah. And for me, when I got out of concrete, I did a little bit of concrete on the side, but I'm blessed because my wife has a very good job, and she's very supportive of what I do to help these boys out. So I'm very fortunate in that aspect. I could have never started what we started and got to where we are today without her, because she really takes care of the household stuff, the bills, everything else. She's very successful, super smart and motivated lady, that's for sure. So without her, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. I'd still be pouring concrete and riding around, be doing local charity work, and that'd be about it.
Sure. When you started doing this, I remember it being Ride for Jamesy. So my question is, who is Jamesy and why Jamesy?
Jamesy is a friend of mine's son. Jim Raffone and I worked together when I first moved to New Jersey years ago. And I didn't like the job. I quit about the time Jamesy was born. And then through social media, I stayed in touch with Jim, and he had a son who had Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Well, when I heard what he had, all I took out of that Duchenne muscular dystrophy was muscular dystrophy. And, I'm familiar with Jerry's kids and, what they did and what that was. And I thought, no, that's a tough break. But, I didn't really give it as much thought as I really needed to. And then when it came time to get in the Hoka Hay, I was deciding what to ride for. And at the time, my sister had battled some breast cancer. So I was leaning towards breast cancer. And then I was watching some stuff about Jamesy, and Jim was on there, and I watched that, and I just thought, you know what, this kid and these kids like this, they need somebody, a biker kind of on their side. So I just had something that's told me that was the right thing to do. So I decided to go for that. And, like I said, my plan was to ride one event, and I thought I'll raise money for Jar of Hope through, Jamesy. And, at the end of it, I'll be done, and that's that. And then it just kind of really hit me because I coach sports, and seeing these kids fight muscle wasting disease when I'm at baseball games with, some of the best athletes in the state, competing at that level, it just kind of rubbed me the disease kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So it just pulled me to fight a little harder for it, because I thought these kids really need to, have a chance at, life as a normal kid knows it, and just, so what I could do, Jar of Hope did a lot of marathons and that kind of thing. And, I joke around about it, but I was a little too hard on my body to be out running marathons. So, what I can do is ride a motorcycle, and turned out I could do it pretty well. And I raised a good bit of money. And so it just evolved from there. And that first Hoka Hay is where it all started. And, that Hoka Hay just kind of changed me, changed my way of thinking, and changed, my outlook on things. And I was told that going into it. So I was excited that it turned out how it did.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about Duchenne's being a muscle wasting disease. Can you share a little bit of light on that for people that don't know who gets it, how they get it, where it ends up for all of them?
Yeah, Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a rare form of muscular dystrophy that typically affects boys. There are some girls with it, but it is very rare. It is typically boys, and in my mind, the sad part is the majority of kids that have Duchenne muscular dystrophy got it from their mom. Their mom is the carrier, and the boys get the disease. There are some boys that, have mutated on their own where the mom is not a carrier. So it's not uncommon for the mom not to be a carrier and the boy, to still have it. But it is a muscle wasting disease. It affects kids right away. Some find out 3-4 years old, some find out at a year, but, they're just a little awkward, if that's the right word. They're not quite have the grace that kids of that age have. They're not as coordinated. And a lot of the parents think, they're, okay, well, my kid's not going to be a pro baseball player. Okay, I can live with that. Not realizing exactly how bad it is. So when it's confirmed, it's just devastating because it affects boys, and, it's a muscle wasting disease. So it literally deteriorates your muscles. And unfortunately, one of the main muscles in your body is your heart. So a lot of the kids, eventually succumb to heart ailments at a young age. And it's just it's super sad that right now it's, at this point, it's still 100% fatal. There's not a person that has survived Duchenne muscular dystrophy yet. And it just has a snowball effect. It gets worse, and they lose their ability to walk, and they go from chairs to, eventually complete care. And that's why what we do is so important. We try to help them live their best life through both funding research and funding their daily needs, be that some kind of scooter, wheelchairs, hero haulers, vans, things like that. So it's a wide variety of things that we're trying to accomplish with them, just to let them live their best life. And it's very easy to get motivated to do it when you start beating these kids, because It's not like they did something stupid and had an accident. It's not like they're old and they chose to do something that affected them a certain way. Like they're just kids, and the kids are just super nice and they don't know anything different, but they just have this disease, and it just slowly, when you see a kid, they're never going to be as good as they are today. Like it's like aging super fast. Their muscles are fading. Every day is a little worse than it was yesterday. And that's what a lot of people who are around them don't understand. They don't understand Duchenne, that they're not going to shake it off. They're not going to walk it off. They're gonna deteriorate every day. So it's, they do need some special care and a little TLC from time to time.
Absolutely. Going back to your bio, fundraiser for 2018, first year running, you were awarded this Akasita, and I know I'm saying it wrong. What is that? Explain that.
A Kichita is an antler.
At least I wasn't close.
Yeah, exactly. And it took me a little bit when I was awarded. I knew what it was, but that is an antler that a guy made and presented to the Hokahay, and it's been passed for riders. And then in 2020, they used that as an award that they gave to me for raising the most money for the Hokahay. And the Kichita is a Lakota word for warrior. So that's what it means. And Jim Red Cloud, the founder of the Hokahay, that's what he was looking for, was warriors to go out and spread awareness about life on reservations, life in general when somebody needs a pick me up. So he was a visionary that was incredible. So his name is on the back of it, and it has the Hokahay logo inscribed on it. It's really cool, but it just gets passed from rider to rider. You can hold it as long as you want and pass it to whomever you want. So it was awarded to me, and then I passed it on to Hopper last spring. So it was very fitting, very timely that I happened to have it, and I could give it to Hopper, and then Hopper goes on to do this incredible ride. So it was pretty awesome. But that's what it is. It's just an award, and it's just to honor you. You are a warrior, and then you hand it off to the next warrior, and they roll with it. But the goal is it never sits still. It has to travel on a motorcycle. So it's pretty cool.
It is. I've seen it. I've been able to hold on to it. It's a moose antler, isn't it?
Yes. Yep. It's a moose antler. It's pretty neat because it's, you have it, and it's your goal is to take it places and see it, like show it the world. Jim Red Cloud, was known as a memory maker. His headstone has memory maker on it. So that's the idea. You take this warrior and you travel and you make memories. You spread awareness for your cause, whatever it is, and you be a memory maker.
So that would explain why you kept taking pictures of it in different places.
Correct. Yep. I tried to get my goal was I wanted to have it in all 48 states before I gave it up. It did not pan out for me. I think I fell 6 states short, something like that, because winter came and we actually had winter. So I was a little limited coming out of New Jersey that year, but I still got to a lot of states. So it was pretty neat.
That's cool. Doing all this riding, you're a member of the Booze Fighters. Can you tell us what that is, what the Booze Fighters are?
Yeah, the Booze Fighters Motorcycle Club is one of the oldest motorcycle clubs in existence. We were founded in 1946 by Wino Willie. There's a movie, The Wild Ones, that came out. There's a book. There's all kinds of history on the Booze Fighters, but we are a worldwide club that is really focused on motorcycles. We do a lot of cool stuff. We're into riding. There's guys that travel all over the place, and they really have gotten behind what I do, and not only myself, but there's Booze Fighters around this world that are doing incredible things to help people out, be it local, or Wounded Warriors type stuff. But there's a bunch of guys that all ride for a reason, and the club has been exceptionally supportive of what I do. They've awarded me things and had me up to speak about my cause in front of the nation, and they really, really get behind it. Clubs get kind of a bad rap sometimes, and everybody refers to clubs as gangs, and it's just not the case. we get offended a little bit when people call us a gang, because it's not that. We are a band of brothers that all have a common interest, which is motorcycles, but it brings people from all walks of life with that one common core of motorcycles together. And there may be a doctor, and there may be a guy who is, a step off of being homeless, and they're all together at the same place in the same time. It's one of the rare things I've ever encountered in my life that puts people from so many different walks of lives and economic, positions in the same place, and everybody's the same. Everybody's an equal. So it's a brotherhood like none other, in my opinion, and it's just a great thing to be a part of. And I do a lot of work. I've been there for a while, and it's the rewards far outweigh what we got to put into it to do it. So it's an awesome way.
It seems to me I heard somewhere, but you're pretty high ranking in the booze fighter world. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess so. I am what they call a regional representative. So I represent all of the booze fighters in the Northeast. So that's what I do for the club, and I do that because I have the time and I'm motivated to do it. I really am a believer in the booze fighters cause and what we do and how we do it, and the great things that come from being able to do what we do far outweighs what I have to do to make that happen. So, I don't know. I don't consider rank much of anything. It's just a title. It's just I have a little
Right.
more time to do. I have a little more time to do something than some people. But what I consider myself as just another booze fighter who just has a little more time is all.
Sure. So you kind of touched on this. My next question in my notes: when people see clubs, or they call it the color. I don't understand why is that? So to give you my background, I think you know a little bit about it. I was not a chest thumping Harley guy, not a long distance rider. I just love to ride motorcycle. If it has two wheels, I want to ride it. So why are they called colors? I'm going to ask you that first. Do you know?
Yeah, the colors are what's on your back patches, and a lot of the clubs, the booze fighters are green and white. There's other clubs that are black and white, red and white, purple, all different colors. But when you look on the back, you can identify a lot of clubs by the color of their patches.
I remember the reason I asked why they're called colors. I went to Sturgis. You know what? No, it was Daytona when we launched in March of 16. My son was with me, and I'm like, let's go check out Main Street. I'll show you what this is. And there was a sign on one of the entrances to the bar or whatever, and it said no colors. And I didn't even notice it, right? Just go walking past it. My son goes, Dad, what is it? And I'm like, oh, that's not what you're thinking. I said, that means, motorcycle club members. And do you know why are they called colors? Is that the whole reason?
Yeah, and they just it's like a slang term for your cut is called colors, what's on the back. And it's a shame that they have that in bars, because if a club guy in any club, we're going to get in a fight in a bar, they say, well, it's a club guy, let's get rid of colors, which pisses me off, to say the least, because if two college kids get in a fight in a bar, they don't say, they don't put a sign up, no college kids, nobody under 25. So it's like you get discriminated against for kind of nonsense reasons, and we have that happen from time to time. It happened to a bar around me that was a really fun bar, but the owner of it was just a little bit of I don't know what the word is, sissy, I guess, and he was intimidated by bikers. And I was like, I'm no different. If I have a cut on, or I am with my wife, whatever, I could be wearing a suit. I'm the same guy. You do something to my family, you're going to get the same outcome. I don't put on something and be like, okay, well, today I'm going to go start trouble in a bar. That's not how it works. So it's just people who watch too much Sons of Anarchy and think that that's real life, bikers, and that's just not the case. If something happens in a bar, it would have happened if they were in a suit, or if they would have happened. Bikers are just a different breed of guy, especially a lot of the club guys. We're the kind of people that don't tolerate things that some people might. If you slap your wife in front of some of us, basically all of us, if you're in public, you slap your wife, you can expect a reaction. We're not going to tell you shouldn't do that.
Would it be a reaction, or would it be a return favor?
Yeah, they're gonna find out in a hurry.
And that's I guess that's the basis of my next question, which you kind of have answered it. But what I have written down is clubs are always perceived wrong. And the reason, like, this even struck me the first year that you came riding up to Daytona. There was somebody there I was talking to, and they're like, "You affiliate with that guy?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that guy's freaking awesome." He's like, "But he's a 1%er." I'm like, "What the hell are you even talking about?" He's probably the coolest guy you're going to meet all week here at the rally. And sure enough, I mean, I had introduced you at the time, and now he, thinks very highly of you because he's gotten to know you through me. And I know you're trying to figure out who it is, but you won't. So it's just somebody I see at these shows. But that happened because I've met, in my line of work, I've met tons of people. I've met Hell's Angels. I've met, now I'm drawing blanks on who I've met. I've met one guy that was like immediately postured up, like, "I'm going to kick your ass for asking that question." And the guy out of the same club turned around and said, "Settle down. This guy's cool." And I just, how do we beat that? How do you get over that? You told us what the deal is, but now I know that everybody's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever go away because there's always TV, and there's always the myth, and there's always the want, and there are some bad guys that are in motorcycle clubs. There's some bad guys that are firemen too, but they don't get a bad rap. Every profession has some bad people in it. Every walk of life has some bad people that do some things that you regret. But the problem is, with today's day, especially, if something happens in a bar, no matter where it is, it's all over social media or the news, to let everybody to know about it. So it just spreads. I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. And I think there's a small percentage of people who like it that way. They like it that way, and that's fine. You do you. I don't really care. But everybody looks at a guy in a club, and if you don't know what club life is, they look at all clubs the same. The guy you're talking about looks at us and says, that's a 1%er. The boost fighters are not 1%ers. That's a different animal in itself, and we're not. But nobody knows that. Nobody knows the distinctions. They just see a club guy and they think, "Oh, that's a bad guy." And I have that happen all the time. I wear my boost fighter vest, as all the time, and I'm all across the country, and I ride for a charity. I ride for kids, so I talk to kids all the time, and the kids are always, they don't know anything. So they're always super, super outgoing, but the parents are always a little bit, standoffish because of their perception of, bikers. So, I think I've changed a lot of people's, thinking about that, because now I've just gotten out there so much, but I hope that I could change the whole world's view on it, and they wouldn't be so hard. But, for every good deed that 100 guys do, there's one guy out there that does one thing, messed up, and that's the stereotype that sticks. Nobody looks over at the 100 that are doing good things. They look at that one guy who got 20 years in jail for doing something stupid, and that's a stereotype that is going to stick with it. And, that's the way it is.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I have to share this story because I can very much attest to you being a very good guy. You shared something with me in a previous conversation. You set out with a task, and I don't remember what your if it was 30 days or what, but you made a goal, and I'm going to let you talk about this, but it was in 2013. Do you remember what that year was? And tell us how it started. you chuckle
Yeah.
because I think your wife even like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, in 2013, it was about this time of year, or it was after Christmas, but it was New Year's, and we were coming up with New Year's resolution, same year, same shit. And
Yep.
I don't know how it came about, but I decided that I was going to attempt to make a stranger smile, one stranger every day at a minimum. So I set out to do that, and it just kind of stuck and became a thing. And it's the only New Year's resolution that I've ever done from January 1st until December 31st. It's the only one I've ever stuck out for a whole year. And what started out as kind of a joke evolved into a very hard task because of my lifestyle. I spend a lot of time on a motorcycle. I spend a lot of time in remote places hunting. So it was not the easiest task when you're in the top of the Rocky Mountains in a tent to try to make a stranger smile every day. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of funny, but it's one of those things. I don't know how we started talking about it. I think it might have something to do with 75 hard, but anyhow, I don't know how we started talking about, but it's not something I've shared on a on a regular basis. There's very few people that have ever heard that story. So I guess now the cat's out of the bag, but that is something I did do back in 2013.
Cat's out of the bag. This big badass biker is just a giant softie.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And it was a task, but I would rather make somebody smile if I had, I'm a fun loving guy who will flip his switch if he has to, but I would prefer to have a good time with people.
Yeah, for sure. So that in no way was related, but really it kind of was, turned into the Mile Monsters. So how did the Mile Monsters get started, and what caused you to do this in place of just picking and donating to an already established charity?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good question, which I do get asked quite a bit. I did ride for Jar of Hope, and when I rode for Jar of Hope, I did a lot of things on my own there. We had T-shirts made and coins and that type of thing, and it just kind of evolved and grew a little bit. And I like to do things my own way, so to speak. That's how my brain works. And as it sounds, I don't like to answer to a lot of people. So I have a vision of how I want to have something go, and I just want to do it. And I'm very spontaneous, but I follow my gut. And what some people say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. If my gut tells me I can, then I believe I can. And in 2020, when I sat with K Solo, which is a good friend of mine, he gave me some advice, and he was impressed with my ability to fundraise. And he says, you got to up your game and take it to the next level, and reach more kids and help some kids out. And I just gave that a lot of thought, and it's kind of been in the back of my head. And I thought if I started a nonprofit, I had some benefits for myself, and we could still donate to the causes like Jar of Hope, and then branch out and help some other kids with some things. And I had a vision. It's hard for me to put into words how that vision was, but that vision is what Mile Monsters is right now. It just happened much at an accelerated pace, much more accelerated than I had planned, with Hopper's 100,000-mile ride for Mile Monsters, the things that I was able to accomplish, and getting people behind it, and having Wild Ass join in our promotional stuff and fundraising. It just really blossomed and took off. And I sit back and I look at what we've accomplished in a year, and I look at the smiles on some of these kids' faces. And I have a tattoo on my arm from a kid in Texas. We helped finish off paying a van in California for Turbo. It's just like those things make all the risk of what we do worth it. And it makes all the headaches and all the nonsense all worth it. And we're still able to help Jamesy and help Jar of Hope. So, our mission hasn't changed. It's just expanded. And, I give a lot of credit to that to Jar of Hope. Like they got me passionately involved in this, and it's blossomed to another thing that really feeds the fight against Duchenne. So, I hope that my traveling around the country and promoting these mile monsters has affected some kids in a great way. So that's really my goal. And I don't have a son who has this terrible disease. I'm blessed. My son is an extreme athlete, a college student, and really the perfect kid. So I don't know what it's like to raise a son with Duchenne, but I know what the disease is like, and I can see the look in, the mom's eyes when I tell them we want to help and, help them with something they may need. And, things just work out how they work out. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason. It just does. And it's worked out well. So I'm very thankful for where we are today.
It's very cool. You have, if I'm not mistaken, now you've mentioned Hopper, but there are other people that you got riding for the Mile Monsters. Am I correct?
Correct. Last year I had the Chauncey brothers and Ken ride for us in the Hokahay, just ride for our cause.
Yeah.
And now this year we have, I don't have my list in front of me, but there's other riders that will be riding in the Hokahay for Mile Monsters. So we're going to have a good team, so to speak. And you'll see that on our website. Each rider is going to be have a little bio on there. And, people are going to be able to donate to that specific rider so we can have some friendly competitions. And some of our riders, have some other causes that are near and dear to them. So part of what they raise is going to go to their own cause in their hometown, and other part of what they raise will join the monster pool and help some kids out. And some of these kids we have not even met yet. So I just am always branching out and trying to help where we can. Unfortunately I can't help every kid with this terrible disease, but we do help the ones we can, and we do what we can. That's all we can do.
Absolutely. That leads to my next question. How do you pick the kids that you've helped so far, the ones that we've seen? I believe that's 4 of them, right? I'm still counting Jamesy on that list, but there's Jamesy, there's Turbo, it was Gavin and Drew. Is that right?
Correct. Those are the 4 that we highlighted on Hopper's ride. Tried to have some days for them. We ran out of time a little bit, but anyhow, how I picked those is really no rhyme or reason. Jamesy, was from the beginning.
We got that story.
So that's a no-brainer. But Drew, I had met during our race against time a couple of years ago. We did a day for Drew back then. So I've known Drew for a couple of years, and I've stayed in contact with his dad, and he, we were talking, and they happened to be doing something during our ride, and I thought, let's bring him on board and donate a little money to their marathon and river rafting that they're doing to raise money for Drew. And Gavin, I actually met his mom last year. I put a little, ad, just a little statement on one of the Duchenne Facebook pages that I was looking for kids to showcase while I did my awareness ride last year, just to bring their cause and not really talk about the disease, but talk about the cool stuff the kids do. And Gavin is one of those kids. And then it just kind of grew from there. And, I got to be, friends with his mom and dad, and just one thing led to another. So he was pretty easy to want to help out. And he's such a cool kid that his personality, he's a little artist, and he's just awesome. You can go back and watch the video about Gavin, on our Facebook page or on our website. But then, and Turbo asked me that very question. It's the only time I've ever been asked by a kid. Turbo and I were carving a pumpkin in his kitchen, and he looked right at me and he asked, "Why did you pick me? How did you decide on me to help?" And, I told him, I said, I don't have all the answers. I said, I'm not very religious, so to speak, organized religion. And but I'm spiritual. And I told him, I said, I don't know, but the Lord works in mysterious ways, I guess, because for whatever reason, I went on my computer, and I never go on Facebook on my computer. And I did that day, and I was just looking at fundraisers and how people were doing them to see if I could get some ideas for us and Hopper's Ride. And I came upon Turbo's quest to get this van, and it was for his birthday, and his birthday had passed, and they were short by $10,000 or $11,000, whatever it was. And Hopper and I had raised that much money at the time, and so I reached out to Hopper, and how bikers do things. I laugh because we don't put a lot of things. I did a little bit of research on Turbo. He looked like a cool kid. He looked like it was something that was truly needed. I hit Hopper up. I said, hey, I found a kid who needs a van for $10,000, $11,000. What do you say we get behind this kid? And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so in
Sure.
5 minutes, I reached out to his mom in California, and I said, hey, I think we can help you out. And she wasn't sure if I was a scam or if I was, something. It was just too good to be true. But
Yeah.
we got together, and I got her the money over, and then we went out and did a ceremonial check just to see the van and get some pictures and give Turbo a hug. So it was pretty cool. But the kids kind of come to us more than we find them, and just like I say, gut feelings and timing. Kids come to us when we happen to be starting something, doing something, or have the money for it. It's just luck of the draw, I guess. So there's not a big process we don't have a big application process. We just find kids, and they find us, and we go from there.
Very cool. I know this. I'm asking this to share with the listeners some of the things that you've done for these kids. Like we all see money go to these charities that's eaten up in office fees and BS expenses. What are you spending the money on?
Yeah, we take the money in, and what we donate it towards, we have several different ways. Research, which is Jar of Hope, is very big on the research and making great strides in that area. So a lot of the money that goes to Jar of Hope is actually going for a cure, and so that's one avenue of it. But then what we like to do is look for things that are, going to help the kid's life. Let them live their best life. Turbo's case, it was a van, and then when we went out there, we got the kids PlayStation 5s. The newest, coolest thing that all the kids want. So they are the cool kids, and it gives them a way to connect, because these kids can't just go ride their bike down the street to neighbors' houses and hang out. That's very difficult. So the PlayStation, as everybody knows, gaming is very big and allows these kids to stay in contact with other people. You still have that circle. So that's one other thing we do. Like Gavin, we brought him up to Fort Worth, and we paid for him to come up for the weekend, and took some of his artwork and he tattooed it on me. So, that was really awesome. And then in January, we're going down to Gavin's school to have a little talk with his entire school about, I don't know, bullying's the right word, but treating these kids the best. So not only are we going down there, but we're going to give the entire school shirts. So we're going to equip the shirts for a Monster Day, and we're going to do stuff like that. So we have action items, we have research, we have things like that. If they're into medical treatments where they need money for that, we do that. And then there are a few kids that we go outside of Duchenne, and we do help those as well. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, we donated some money to that to help them get gift cards for Christmas for this year, because the Pine Ridge is where Jim Red Cloud was from, and that's the founder of the Hoka, which kind of got this started. So we wanted to, pay a little bit back for this being possible, is directly because of Jim Red Cloud. Like, there's no two ways about it. If it wasn't for him, I would have never got into what I do and how we do it. So I like to thank the guy that, I never got to meet him. He passed away before we met, and I feel like I got robbed a little bit, but he was a great visionary, and he's generated so much money for so many good causes because of his vision that it's incredible.
So now, since you've never heard an episode, I'm going to ask you 5 questions that I plan on these being in all of them that you have not been exposed to yet. You ready?
Hey, sure.
So, question number 1. What is something you believe that other people think is insane?
I believe that nothing is impossible. I've done so many things that people said couldn't be done, and they're done. And I honestly believe they'll find a cure for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I've heard from people like that's a pipe dream. That's that's not going to happen. And I just don't believe that. I don't believe that anything is impossible. It might take a while, might take a lot of hard work, but those things are possible. I've seen too many incredible things done to say that something is just straight up not possible. So that's the only thing I got for that, I guess.
No, that's great. Number 2, the following could be an investment of money, time, energy, or any other resources. When it comes to life with your motorcycle, what is the best or most worthwhile investment you have made?
With my motorcycle, the best investment I made was I put a wild ass seat on it. And I'm not just saying that because we're talking to a wild ass guy, but I'm saying that because I used to cringe in the seat and my ass would kill me. And that's not even a joke. I have a $500 seat on my bike made for me. And that was the best investment I put on. I joke around about that all the time, that that allowed me to do what I do. I ride my motorcycle for 20 hours a day when I'm competing, and I feel pretty good about it at the end of the day. So that, if I was talking to you or anybody else, that's what I would say is the best thing I did for what I do.
Well, thank you. That is not the expected. And I don't know what to expect with these answers, right? I did just expect them to be all over the board. So, question number 3. What is the worst advice you see or hear being dispensed in your world?
Yeah, the worst advice I hear that I hear people getting is really how to do things and what you need to do. Too many people get advice, and they get, like, if you're going to go out on these long rides, they make it way more difficult than it needs to be. Riding 1,000 miles is not nearly as hard as you think it is. You just have to limit your stops, things like that. But I hear people, oh, if you're going to travel, you got to have this tent, you got to have this, you got to have that. And if you just come to terms with being tougher than the environment, you'll enjoy it much more. I've had nights underneath the stars in the mountains, the deserts, the plains, cities, everything. And I sleep out in the open all the time. And I wouldn't change that for the world. And the worst advice I always hear is what people need to bring with them. And you just don't need all that. Don't look at riding a motorcycle like, you're moving somewhere or you need all these amenities. Go simple, enjoy life, and your ride will be much more enjoyable.
Okay. Then question number 4 is, do you have any asks or requests from the audience?
No, the only thing I request from people all the time is to share what we do. Just simply share. If we make a video on our Facebook page, if you see something on our website or YouTube channel, just share it. Not everybody can afford to donate. I understand that. Not everybody has spare money to help Mile Monsters do what we do, and that's fine. But we get so much more from sharing because you never know who that reaches. We have a dealership that is donating $10,000 to Hopper's Ride because he saw one of my videos and was inspired by it. That's the kind of thing that if Carol Burks wouldn't have shared that video to his Facebook page, he wouldn't have saw it. So something so simple that takes zero time to share what we do would be my biggest request, to share what we do. And that's a great way to support these kids.
That's awesome. That's actually a great request, and it's easy. Question number 5 is not a lot of thought process. Where do we follow you, Mile Monsters, and you've already answered, but how do we support?
Mile Monsters Inc. is the name of our, our foundation, our nonprofit. And that's on pretty much every venue. And it is just that simple, Mile Monsters Inc. So milemonstersinc.com is our website. We have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to get a little more into, and I'm going to try to steer it there. But we have Facebook, we have a group and a page. I'm going to be shifting everything to the page. As crazy as that is, we have a group with thousands of followers. But when I went to a nonprofit, you have to have a page to make it legit, not a group. So I had to start a page, and it's kind of like starting over. It just ties in our website and our mission and our ability to collect money on Facebook and not pay a fee is all done by having a page. So it's very important to have a page. I'm not doing it to be a pain in anybody's ass and have them follow two things, but it's a must-have, and it's one of those necessary evils, if that's the right way. But yeah, Mile Monsters Inc. is all there is. If anybody needs to get a hold of me, man, I am an open book. You'll find my email, my phone number on all of our venues. So nothing, my cell phone is listed around the world. So not very hard to get a hold of. If somebody needs something, you can text me, call me, whatever. But and if there's somebody out there listening to this that has a son, affected by Duchenne, you need some avenues to go to, reach out to me. If I don't have the answers, I'll get them for you. If it's something we can help you out with, we'll be happy to look into it. But if something medically, I can steer you in the right places.
Something I forgot to ask, something that is very worth pointing out. How many people make up the Mile Monsters and the behind the scenes crew of Mile Monsters?
The whole office staff is on the phone with you right now. It's the Mile Monsters, it grew very quickly, and it's just me. We have riders that ride for us, and Hopper, during his ride, his wife helped out greatly, and Hopper helped out greatly. So it's not just me, but I was the founder, and my wife and kids kind of guide me, and I go to them for when I have ideas and things. But behind the scenes, it is, almost all done by me, and I'm a very busy guy, and I ride a lot, and it's kind of grown. I'm hoping that we get some help with that down the road, but those things kind of just happen. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's not a big corporation that you see some of these nonprofits where they have 7 employees. We don't have any employees. All the money donated goes back to kids in need, other foundations. It comes in one door and is directed back out. It's just a way to make your $10 very meaningful to a kid. We take 50 people that donated $10 and then go spend it on one kid, something cool. And we try to show that to the world so everybody can see it and everybody can be a part of it and enjoy it.
Perfect. The reason I wanted to ask that, and I can't believe I didn't put that in my notes to ask you, is because sometimes things get a little bit delayed because you're out earning the money. And there's going to be probably about a 12-day window in June where the Mile Monsters are going to be making a ton of money, but completely silent.
Yes, that'll be almost a month in June.
Okay.
And it's like that every year. But our supporters are awesome. Like, they really are. Like, people who I've screwed up shirt orders or coin orders, or they didn't get something or got lost in the mail. Like, I don't sweat anything. If I mailed it to you and you didn't get it, they just call me. I just mail you another one. Like, I don't care. Like, it got lost in the mail. If it shows up, I tell them, make another donation, give it away, keep it. I don't care what you do with it. But the vast majority of people, when they understand what we do and how we do it, everybody's been super cool. They know that we're not some big conglomerate that's just making money off this and doing whatever. They know what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it, and everybody's great. I haven't had any problems at all.
No, and I like to point that out, because in a world where everybody wants their stuff right now, when you're actually out doing the work, you maybe can't get it to them right now, and they just need to be a little bit patient. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. That's all.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because it really does help the cause.
Yeah. I think that's it. Do you have any last parting words?
Nothing more than thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you to everybody listening who supports us. We could never do what we do without the help of sponsors, without the help of people, helping me help others. Without the people who donate to Mile Monsters, we couldn't do any of this. All the cool stuff you see is not possible without you people that listen and help and step up and donate money and time and product and everything else to make what we do possible. So I can't express that enough, that I'm the face that gets to hug this kid, but that hug is coming from, all of the people who have anything to do with Mile Monsters Inc. That is from you directly to that kid. And, it means the world to them, and it's life-changing and well worth the time and energy we put into it.
Awesome. Again, Riot, thank you. I am honored to call you a friend, and I am happy that you are braving the elements with me in getting this podcast rolling, and I look forward to working with you for years to come.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that our paths crossed, and not just business, but personally as friends. It's much easier to interact with people when I think of them as a friend and not just something I need or anything like that. So it works out great. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you again. For those of you guys listening, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. I have many more impressive guests to come, and I don't want you to miss an episode. If you would like to share this episode with anybody on any other podcasting app, you will be able to find those links on our website at wild-ass.com. I appreciate you all for listening. Let's get out there and get some riding in. Thank you again, Riot.
All righty. Thank you.